All right, hello everyone. Hopefully you all can hear me. My name is Shanice Bowman. I'm the programs manager here at LOHF. And like we were saying before the recording, we really wanted to reconvene and host an info sessions for our grants cycle because we have made a couple of changes, modifications, updates to the application. So we wanted to provide an opportunity to explain those updates and answer any questions you may have before you start the application process. The applications for the fall cycle are due October 1st. And if you feel like your answers are still a little unclear after this info session, we'll be happy to meet with you either one-on-one via Zoom, or you can always call us. So just feel free to always reach out to us before you hit that submit button if you have any questions. Anna, you can go to the next slide. All right, so today's agenda, like I said, I'm Shanice Bowman and Anna Kennedy is our executive director. She's on the Zoom call as well. We will be recording this for anyone who was unable to attend. And if you just wanted to watch back to have, if you missed something or you have a question and it might be answered during this info session, the recording will be available for you and will probably be live on our social media and our website for those who want to reference it again. We'll go over the updated strategy, funding grant history, outcomes and impacts, children's behavioral health grant cycles, how to apply for the grant, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers towards the end. All right, so our mission here at LOHF is to elevate the mental well-being of youth and children in Lancaster County. And by your support in the community, we can do that as collaboratively as possible in Lancaster County. So we just really focus on elevating the mental well-being of youth and children and families in Lancaster County. Our values are: we are caring, we are collaborative, we have a whole person approach, we value advocacy, and we value visibility. So we focus on two main questions for our strategic planning. So the two main questions that we have is: how will we become more sharply focused on building the talent pipeline in behavioral health to help us elevate the mental well-being of youth and children? And how will we improve access to behavioral health? So the first one is really about building that workplace development. There's a shortage of behavior and mental health providers in Lancaster County. There always has been, but now more than ever, we're noticing a real huge shortage of providers available to children and families. So we really want to focus on how we can improve that and also improve the access. We know there are many barriers when children and family go to seek mental health services. So we try to eliminate as many of those barriers as possible, and access being one of them. So they can mute me, okay. As the grant applications are coming in, our evaluators really focus on these filter questions here on the screen. And those being: to what degree will children's behavioral health be enhanced by this? So as we're reading through the application, we go through these questions and we score based off of these answers that we get from these questions. I won't go through each and every one of these questions, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or wait toward the end. Or you could put your question in the chat box and we'll make sure that we get to it at the end of the presentation. So the following slides will just explain the grant history, some of our outcomes and impacts within the community. So some of the grants that we had previously funded. So the examples of past grantees are on the screen here. I don't want to point out and highlight all of them, but all of what you're seeing on the screen focuses primarily on improving the mental well-being of children and families in Lancaster County. So if you will read through, you'll see that most of these programs, all of these programs definitely have answered our two big strategic questions, and we're able to provide resources and programs to families to increase the access to mental health for children and families. So some of our current grantees are here on the screen. And Anna, do you want to chime in at all to give some kind of overview on what we've previously funded and what we're funding now?
Sure, thanks, Shanice. So our past grantees, in the previous slide, most of these programs that we've funded have really focused on that second big question of eliminating the barriers to accessing mental health care. So we have, in the past really focused heavily on, what are those barriers? Also, where are kids and families, where are they spending a lot of their time? What are the programs and services that are reaching kids so that we can, help to equip programs in the community to, bring resources and services to kids and families where they are. I think a lot in the past, we've also focused on, really trying to build up that structure so that people who are not direct service providers of mental health care can also help to support the family and kids in getting access to what they need. So that could be things like in the juvenile justice system, or in the children and youth system, or in the educational system, that those providers are working together on behalf of families, so that we're really kind of trying to streamline the way that families and kids access mental health care in our community. So that's a lot of what we've funded in the past, and many of these programs, whether they're preschool age or teenagers or even young adults, that they're able to access services more easily. And then in our current grant, some of these examples, are still along those same lines. We have started to fund a little bit more around the workforce development, building the talent pipeline through our grants, and we'll continue to do that, although most of our funding in the talent pipeline building is in other programs that we're also running, which we're not going to go into in detail here today, but you can learn more about some of those. Most of our grants are really focused on increasing access, although you will see a few of these here, telehealth training, diversifying doulas, and diversifying restorative justice. Some of those efforts are really more around training staff and recruiting staff to build the workforce in mental health care. So we're starting to see a little bit more of that in our grant applications as well. Shanice, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. Okay, so this slide, it shares the community that we serve, the community members that we serve. So most of our programs and most of our grantees are Lancaster County children and youth ages 0 to 25 with mental behavioral health needs, and their parents or caregivers and guardians. The community members are primary care and behavioral health providers, and it lists physicians, nurses, psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, guidance counselors, all of which professions help ages 0 to 25 years old. All right, so the grant funding cycle. So we are currently entering our fall cycle. Like I said, applications are due October 1st. The decisions are made by November 15th. And then the funding is available in December. And it's a full calendar year, correct, Anna? So it goes from January to December. We usually like to do check-ins in the springtime. You'll have a halfway interim report due in July, and then the final reports are due in January. We have made exceptions and extended some of those due dates due to COVID restricting programs from continuing. And if you are ever in need of an extension, just feel free to reach out to Anna or myself. So that's the fall cycle. And then the spring cycle, applications are due March 1st. Decisions are made May 15th. The funds are available in June, and the program operates from July to that following June. Site visits are done in the fall, and then interim reports are due in January. Final reports are due in July. So that can get a little confusing. So let's just, if you're looking to apply this fall cycle, just pay attention to the left column here. And then if you're going to wait and hold off and apply for the spring cycle, go ahead and pay attention to the right column. I think we're getting into how to apply, Anna.
Yeah, do you want me to cover some of this?
I do.
So you can visit our website, lohf.org/grants. And on our grants page, at the very top, there's an Apply Now button. You can click on that and create an account in our online application process. And there are links throughout our website. Actually, any one of those pages, the Apply Now pages, will take you to the same grants management system that we use for all of our programs. So you'll just need to create an account and apply online. So Shanice, did you want me to keep covering this?
Please, yes.
Okay. Great. So one of the programs that you'll see after you create your account online is our Fall 2021 grant program. This is the sort of landing page that you'll see. You click the blue apply button and you'll see the application. We use the same system that the Lancaster County Community Foundation uses. So if you're familiar at all with, ours is set up a little bit differently, but it's a username and password. And we can help you with, resetting passwords or creating passwords, or, if you have too many accounts, we can also go in the back end and link your accounts together so that everybody in your organization has access to your organizational files, which is really important and helpful, so that we're not duplicating your organization multiple times in the back end. So just reach out if you have any questions about our online application process. And I'm just going to walk through the actual application so that you can see the questions. As Shanice mentioned at the beginning of our presentation today, we did update our grant application questions. I want to thank our committee who really looked carefully at our application questions and tried to eliminate any unnecessary questions to make the application process a little shorter and hopefully a little bit more streamlined for you. So I'll just go through at a high level, sort of section by section. We'll first ask you for some organization information. We need your EIN number when you create your organization, or if you have already have an organization in our database, we will pull your GuideStar information automatically over from your employer identification number. So that's really important. We can also look it up if we need to, but we're just here. This is just some general information about your organization. If you have an annual report, you can link it here or summarize it in a few sentences. A general description of your programs or activities, what makes your organization unique. This is just helpful for us and our volunteers who read and score your grant applications to just get to know your organization a little bit better. more details about organization information, we want to know your mission, vision. We want to know who's on your board of directors, just a list there. And again, if this is available on your website, feel free to just put a link here and we can click through to that. And then we need to see your annual operating budget and your audited financial statement. And those are upload files. So you can just click the upload a file button, link to that file and submit it there. If you have, if you're not fully audited, I mean, we just need to see your, if your budget's less than $100,000, we need to see your Form 990 there instead. We do only grant funds to tax exempt organizations, but that can include school districts and public institutions. We just need to be able to pull your employer identification number, your EIN, and show that tax exempt status. So section 2 is the purpose of the grant. This is really where you're going to focus primarily on the program that you're requesting funding for. So we want you to name your project, let us know if it's a new program or if it's a continuation. Who are you serving? So what is that target population? Again, as Shanice identified, we are looking at, particularly the birth to 25-year-old age group that, including and beyond age 18 up to young adults. So we want a little bit of a sense from you on who your program will serve. And then the rationale is really, what's the problem that you're addressing? What is the issue or specific need that that your program is attempting to solve? And how is that need determined? Is it something that your organization does that's really unique to your organization, or is it a model or a program that you're bringing from another community that could be successful here in Lancaster County? We want to know a little bit about the health status of the population you're serving and any demographics, demographic needs of that population. So if it's preschool focused, we want to know, is it based on financial need? Is it specific to a certain school district, et cetera? Young adults, same thing. A little bit about that target population. And then beyond in section 2, we want just a quick summary. I'll often recommend that you write your summary last. It's like writing the abstract of a research paper. You typically do that at the end and try to summarize your program. That's actually something that we tend to use in the way that we describe our grant programs. So short is best, just a couple a sentence or two there. In your grant proposal start date and end date, again, I would encourage you to refer back to the timeline that Shanice just presented with the 2 columns. For the fall grant cycle, your start date by default is going to be January 1st to December 31st. If you're applying for the spring cycle, it'll be July 1st to June 30th. If your program operates for less than a year, like if it's a summer only program, feel free to include that so that we have a better idea of when your program's actually operating. But we provide 1-year grant funds. They don't typically go past 1 year unless we're extending. Mm-hmm. And then we just want to know that you have legal compliance for any organizations who work directly with children, that you have all the clearances in place. And then section 3 is really focused on your specific project. So this is where we want to get into a little bit more detail around, your best guess estimate of, how many children will you be serving, how many family members, how many community members. And this is helpful, especially as we're looking at, is this a program that's serving a small number of people, but providing a very intensive type of service to that small group? Or is your program, serving thousands of people with meals or book distribution or something that's, maybe not as intensive, but you're, serving larger numbers of people? Is it geared more towards the, parents and family members? or, more directly to children and young adults. And then community members, that would really come into play heavily when you're doing a lot of training or professional development, or your program is heavily reliant on, working with teachers or other kinds of, or other programs if it's very collaborative. And then these are our like main grant application questions. I mean, this is like what we're really going to look carefully at is, to what degree will this program use data-driven best practices? Is there some kind of research behind it? Has your organization collected data to know that this program is effective? The second question is, how will you measure that success? So, are you going to complete surveys? Are you going to, interview your program participants? What is that measure of success for your program? And then the third question here is, how will your program promote inclusiveness and diversity to support the Lancaster County community? Again, it's your definition of diversity and inclusion. We're really, interested in, are your programs reaching our whole community, or, specific populations in our community that may have greater need, or, are you basing, certain program eligibility based on reaching, the broadest population of our community? So we're interested, and that's a new question, relatively new for us. The fourth question here is, describe how you will provide this program virtually if necessary. So that's, again, something new that we've changed and added as a result of the COVID pandemic. We really want to know, can this program be adapted to an online format if it's needed to? And again, we just want your honesty. I mean, I understand, some programs, may not be able to function virtually, and we're trying to gain as much understanding here and be realistic as possible. The next question is, how is your organization adapting to current challenges that families are facing? So again, like if this is a new program that you've created or adjusted based on, feedback or success, measures or data that you've been collecting, this is where, we want to know about, how your organization is adapting to those changes. And then the next question, is really kind of about alignment with our goals and mission. As Shanice described at the beginning of the call today, how does your program align with one or both of our two big goals? As I said, when we were describing our current grantees and some of our past grantees, most of our grants are really focused on that second big goal of improving access to mental health care for youth and children in Lancaster County. That's the bulk of most of our grants, but we have started to see more grant applications focused on building the talent pipeline, which could be, training programs, efforts to recruit and retain qualified or licensed staff providing mental health care. And we are interested in funding those programs as well. So we aren't asking you to do both. We're only asking you, how does your program align with one or both? There's no like extra points for trying to tackle both. It's just, we want you to be honest here. And then the last question is, how will your program focus its resources on children, youth, and families who are most in need? Again, we want to make sure that our grant dollars are being invested where the need is greatest. So however you define that in your program eligibility or other ways that you are rolling out programs to serve children, youth, and families in our community, we really want the impact to be where the need is greatest. And then the last section is the grant budget. So these are the questions that we're asking you to describe, what is your grant budget? What is the total budget of the project? So this is the budget beyond what you're asking us to fund. So the total cost. So for example, if it's a you know, if it's a summer reading program, you know, the total cost to run the summer reading program might be $100,000. But from us, you're requesting $20,000. So that's the second question. What's the amount you're requesting? The suggested range of our grants is between $5,000 and $25,000. $25,000 is the maximum grant amount that we will fund without, you know, any other considerations. We typically don't fund over $25,000 in a year per grant application. And then we want to know about other sources of revenue. So the next two questions here are about what other sources of revenue do you have to fund that? Again, back to that first question, the total project budget. So do you have other sources of revenue that are secured? So for example, you know, if you have other grants that are already secured, and if it's zero, that's fine, you can type in zero. And then the second revenue question is about pending funds. So if you have grant applications that are submitted, but you don't know the response yet, that's where you could include that. And then the two questions on expenses, we just want to know of the requested amount. So of the $5,000 to $25,000 that you're requesting from us, how much of that will you allocate to salaries? And how much will you allocate to operations? So just a simple, you know, two-part breakdown there of personnel. And again, these are employees already working at your organization. It can be, you know, the total salaries, payroll, taxes, and benefits. We just want a number here. And then the operations is all the other, you know, program supplies, materials, training, curriculum, travel, all of that. So we just kind of want a sense of people versus things. And then you have an optional budget explanation here. So you can describe any of the budget items that are listed above. If you want to give us, you know, a line item or notes or comments on any of those. And then we also have an optional budget project budget upload. So if you have a project budget, again, for the whole program, not just specifically what you're asking us to fund, but your entire program, not agency-wide, but just, you know, for that program, you could upload a file here. It's optional. So here, anything you see the asterisk is a required question, and anything that does not have an asterisk is optional. And then the very last section is just, again, an optional supporting materials. If you have anything that you would like to add, it could be letter of support, a staff bio. If your program is heavily dependent on collaboration with another organization, we would strongly encourage you to upload a memorandum of understanding or some kind of an agreement that you have in place with that other organization. Or if you have a patient or client testimonial, you could include that. There is just one upload file button, but you can include several materials in one file and upload it as one attachment. And then we do need a signature of your executive director on the application, just typed in here, and a date. And then you can save or click submit, and it comes over to us. Shanice, is there anything else you'd like to add before we open it up for questions?
Yes, I'm noticing a lot of names, some familiar names, some past names who have applied. And I think you are here because you want to know how to strengthen your application. So from what I have seen in the past 2 years is when the committee sits down and evaluates the application, is the budget section that is usually what they're scratching their head about. So if you're really struggling with filling out the budget section and you're not quite sure of how to explain your reasoning behind your budget, again, please feel free to reach out to myself and Anna. Everyone does a great job of explaining the program and, you know, how it supports the community. But then we get to the budget section and it's like, something's not making sense, or something's not, like, you know, it's not adding up here. So just make sure that you're really focusing on breaking down and explaining the budget so that we have a better understanding of how we can support the program. That's just my advice to those who are, wanting to reapply.
Thank you, Shanice. Yeah, that is one very helpful piece of advice. And I would also suggest or recommend that as you're looking through the whole application, the budget is actually a great place to start and have a really clear understanding of how you're going to allocate the grant funds in your program, and then go back and create or submit your narrative questions, because it all ties back to the budget, and we are really interested in how you're going to allocate those funds.
We do have a question in the chat, Anna. My program runs over the summer. Should I apply for the spring cycle? That's
a great question. The spring cycle would have a year that starts July 1st. So if you want the grant funds to be available before June, I would actually recommend that you submit your application this fall or in a fall cycle, because then you'll have the grant funds well in advance of summer, especially if the grant funding you're requesting is also going to support recruitment or any pre-work that would lead to a successful summer program. So if you want those grant dollars, in advance of when your program actually starts, I would apply in the fall, and then you'll have the grant funds, available to use for marketing, recruitment, however you want to allocate those funds. And then you'd have them for the full summer months. Great question. It's really completely up to you and how you want to receive funding. The other thing I'll mention with our grant terms is that the fall cycle funding is for what we would typically consider a calendar year. So if your organization operates on a calendar year, or if you're needing funds to kind of be available for a whole summer, fall is a good time to apply. If your organization really wants your grants to be available for a fiscal year that starts July 1, if that's lined up with your organizational year, you can apply in the spring. That fiscal year is also really helpful if your program operates during a school year, and you want those grant dollars to be coming to your organization in May or June and line up with a school year. Great question. I'm going to stop the screen share and open it up for more questions, and feel free to put your questions in the chat or unmute yourself if you prefer. Any other questions? Shanice, any frequently asked questions that we often get that you think would be helpful? I think those timing questions are pretty typical. We get those a lot. Trying to think, other questions that we often ask or asked are about the evidence base or the research, or how to measure success. Mm-hmm. And I will say that we're not looking for peer-reviewed research that is publishable or anything like that. What we're really interested in is this program a model that is coming out of the field? Does it have a basis in mental health care, or is it coming from another sector? This often is a question that will come up when our committee is reviewing applications, and it's a program that we're unfamiliar with, and we just want to know, like, where is this coming from? Is it coming from within your organization, something that you've been doing for many, many years, and you're refining it based on, you know, past success or past years or lessons learned? Or is this a program that's, you know, endorsed by, you know, associations or, you know, family practice physicians or wherever, the American Academy of Pediatrics, or wherever that it's coming from? And it's really helpful for our review team to kind of understand where this program is originating from. In many cases, it's a combination. You know, it originated from, you know, evidence-based or research-based curriculum or program that is, you know, endorsed or signed off by several large organizations or agencies, and then it's adapted locally, or there's training, you know, through a university that you're, you know, looking to bring this program to Lancaster County. So that's a question we get a lot. Other questions? And feel free to put your questions in the chat if that's easier for you. And if your questions are really specific to your organization, we can set up a time to talk with you about your organization and your questions. I will go back and share my screen to show the
time.
Yeah, the contact. So there's our contact information, our phone number, our website, our email addresses. You can reach out to Shanice or me, and we can answer questions that you have. Shanice, anything else that you can think of that are sort of frequently asked questions?
I just want to encourage those who do want to apply. And like I said, I see a lot of familiar names, to not stop trying to access funding for your program. I personally like to see difference in programs. Like sometimes we get the same application with the same program mission and goal, and it would be nice to see those two organizations collaborate together to make a stronger, you know, impact on the community. So I would just encourage you to continue to seek funding and, you know, resources, but also to collaborate with other organizations who may be interested in helping you strengthen the program as well. That's just my only advice.
Yeah, and I think also to maybe build on that, often, you know, we will offer to meet with applicants whose applications were not funded in a particular cycle, and we'll offer feedback and an opportunity to answer questions that you may have about your application. One of the things that I will typically share with folks in those meetings is, you know, the applications that we fund in each cycle, they're only scored against the other applications that are submitted in that cycle. So if the application was not funded in a previous cycle, it may just be because we had an unusually large number of applications submitted at that time, and our budget was only able to support, you know, the highest ranking 3 or 4 applications that we could fund. So, you know, in that regard, I mean, I think to some extent, just slightly updating the application and resubmitting it is fine. I mean, I think there's often, you know, times when it just needs a little update or some tweaks and things that you can make, and we're perfectly happy to for you to resubmit applications. And if you need help accessing a prior grant application in the online system, we can also do that and make sure that you have access to it. It should be in your organization file when you log into the online application system.
Yeah, that way you don't have to start the application completely over again. You just kind of erase and add what you need to, and then you can just resubmit it.
Mhm. Any other questions, or I don't see anything else in the chat. So we are available to answer any questions that you have, especially if your questions are unique to your organization. Kim
No
says,
problem,
thank you
Kim.
for this opportunity, Anna and Shanice, and for making the process easy. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. And I want to just wish you all the best in applying for grants. We're here to help and support you. This is, an important initiative that we have provided now for 7 years, probably at least, with updates along the way. But it is a really important part of our mission, and we're really grateful to all of you in the community for the work that you're doing every day to help improve access to mental health care for kids and families in Lancaster County. We really appreciate all the great work that you're doing. Shanice, anything else that you would like to?
No, thank you all for joining us. We hope that, this info session was helpful for you on deciding on when to apply or how to apply. Hopefully we can continue doing these info sessions just to make the process easier. I think it's helpful to get together and answer any questions and just provide any feedback and updates. So hopefully it was just as helpful for you as it was for us.
All right, and we will share this recording and it'll be available on our website and on social media. So check back, and thanks again for being here.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.